Hi friends, welcome back to class remotely, and this is Mehjabeen. In today's lesson, we are going to focus on the education system in India during the time of British imperialism in the country. So these are the points that I am going to cover in today's topic. One is education in India before the British. That's the first topic that I am going to cover. Introduction of the modern education system in British India, the Orientalists and the Anglicists, the arrival of the missionaries in India, Macaulays Minute, Wood's Despatch, purpose of Western education in British India, and finally the demerits of the modern education system of British India. Prior to the arrival of the British in India, education in India was basically religious in nature. They were also restricted to the upper class of the society. There were Pathhalas and Maktabs for the elementary education in the country, and for higher education there were the Tolls and the Madrasas. Very few Indians pursued higher education. Those who took up higher education learned subjects like Sanskrit, Arabic and Persian, law, religion, literature, logic, medicine and astronomy. Learning was primarily based on old texts. The Indians did not feel the influence of the new thinking of the Renaissance that was spreading so widely in the West. Now, what were the Pathhalas? The Pathhalas were originally traditional Hindu schools in which children were taught by Brahmins. Sanskrit was the medium of imparting education, and these were basically open-air institutions run by a guru. Then we come to the Maktabs. The Maktabs were elementary religious schools. They were meant for primary education. Then we come to the Tolls. The Tolls were traditional Indian institutions where Sanskrit is the medium of education. And then madrasas are secondary religious schools. So these are the four types of institutions where people got education, where children got education before the arrival of the British in India. Now let's look into the introduction of modern education system in British India. When the British first came to India, they came as a trading group. At that time, they were not concerned about educating the Indians. Eventually, when they took control of the administration of the country, they realized that they needed educated Indians at some levels to help them run the country. They felt the acute need of clerks to maintain records and files. To get them from Europe did not seem to be a very convenient option to them, as these positions were lowly paid. Thus, the British decided to introduce the English system of education in India. The Calcutta Madrasa was established in 1781 by Warren Hastings, and then the Benaras Sanskrit College was founded by Jonathan Duncan in 1791. Christian missionaries also started opening English medium schools in India. The British government wanted the education system to be useful to the needs of the colonial empire. They felt a strong need for Indians who could be employed as clerks to help them in dealing with the local people of the country. However, they found it difficult to decide on whether to continue the existing system of education or to introduce the English system in India. The British government appointed Lord Macaulay to look into the matter. Macaulay thought that Oriental learning was completely inferior to European learning. He suggested the introduction of the Western system of education in India, as he strongly believed that it encouraged reasoning, rational thinking and scientific research. Who were the Orientalists and the Anglicists? In British India, two groups came forward. with distinct opinions on the direction that education in India should take. One was the group of the Orientalists, while the other group was that of the Anglicists. The Orientalists were the ones who advocated the spread of Indian literature and learning through the medium of classical and vernacular languages like Sanskrit, Arabic and Persian. The Anglicists were the English party. This group approved the promotion of Western learning through the medium of English. Lord Macaulay was an important advocate of the idea of Anglicism. The Orientalists also established institutions to carry out surveys of India's geography, geology, botany, history and the people. The Survey of India, which is currently based in Dehradun, was founded by the Orientalists. The Orientalists also made scientific study and classification of Indian plants and animals. They discovered and excavated several archaeological sites such as Harappa. They scientifically studied and mapped India. For the first time, under the influence of Orientalism, accurate maps of India were drawn. The height of the Himalayas was also calculated. The Orientalists were the founders of the first modern census in India. It was due to their initiatives that the population of India was scientifically counted and studied. In the late 19th century, the Orientalists conducted the census in all the territories of India which were under the control of the British. This system of conducting the census every 10 years is practiced in independent India even today. Now let us look at Anglicism. Anglicist is a term which originates from Anglo, which is related to the English or the British. At the time of British imperialism in India, the Anglicists were those amongst the British who did not share the same respect for Indian culture as the Orientalists did. They looked down upon the Indian culture and thought that it was backward and full of superstitious beliefs. The Anglicists were very critical about the Indian culture and thought that it was their duty to reform it and make it modern. The Anglicists also wanted English to replace Persian as the language of higher education in India. They also wanted English to be used in all matters related to the administration of India. Now let us look at the arrival of the missionaries in India. The Anglicists supported the cause of the Christian missionaries who came to India. They wanted the missionaries to spread Christianity in India and educate the Indians. The missionaries established schools for the children in India. One such important British Christian missionary was William Kerry. He was a Baptist minister of the church, a translator, a social reformer, and cultural anthropologist. He was a deep lover of nature. He founded the Agri-Horticultural Society of India in Calcutta. He also founded a missionary school in Serampore. Moreover, in 1818, William Kerry also founded the Serampore College by collaborating with two other English missionaries, Joshua Marshman and William Ward. Together, these three missionaries were called as the Serampore Trio. William Kerry translated the Bible into Bengali and several Indian languages. He also purchased a Bengali language printing press and wrote and published a Bengali dictionary and grammar books. William Kerry and the other missionaries of Serampore created printing presses in around 40 Indian languages. Now it became possible to print works in all these languages for the first time. The missionaries also set up a paper factory in Serampore. They published school textbooks as well. The schools founded by the missionaries inspired the wealthy Indians and Europeans to donate money for the establishment of other private schools and colleges. Hindu College, which later became the Presidency College in Calcutta, and Elphinstone College in Bombay are two such examples. The educated Indians also supported the East India Company's efforts to take charge of the education system because they believed that the liberal ideas of Europe would lead to the progress of Indian society. William Kerry and the other missionaries of Serampore created printing presses in around 40 Indian languages. Now it became possible to print works in all these languages for the first time. The missionaries also set up a paper factory in Serampore. They published school textbooks as well. The schools founded by the missionaries inspired the wealthy Indians and Europeans to donate money for the establishment of other private schools and colleges. Hindu College, which later became Presidency College in Calcutta, and Elphinstone College in Bombay are two such examples. The educated Indians also supported the East India Company's efforts to take charge of the education system because they believed that the liberal ideas of Europe would lead to the progress of the Indian society. Now we will study about Macaulay's Minute. In the year 1813, the East India Company made a decision to devote a sum of rupees 1 lakh per year for education in India. In current times, the value of this amount is around rupees 8 crore. The Orientalists wanted to use this money to support the traditional system of education in India. However, the Anglicists were interested in using this money to introduce Western education in India. The East India Company left this money unspent for many years. The situation turned in the favor of the Anglicists when Lord William Bentinck became the Governor General of India in 1825. Bentinck was a supporter of Anglicism. Thomas Macaulay, who was a member of William Bentinck's council, also had strong Anglicist views. Lord Macaulay, who was also a historian and essayist, made a short note in a document, and he titled this document as his Minute. The controversy between the Orientalists and the Anglicists was settled by Macaulay's Minute. Macaulay's observations were that the Indians who received a Western-style education could be employed at the lower levels of British administration in India. This would be cheaper for the British than employing Europeans to do this work. He also thought that such Indians would develop an admiration for Western culture and would become loyal supporters of the British rule. Macaulay's Minute favored teaching of Western sciences and literature through English medium. Governor General William Bentinck supported this system of education. Macaulay's Minute formed the basis for the reforms introduced in the English Education Act of 1835. The British government established numerous English medium schools and colleges in India. In 1844, English was declared as the official language of the country. The British government also made the announcement that the Indians educated in British schools would be given government jobs. Now let us take a look at Wood's Despatch. In 1854, Sir Charles Wood, who was the president of the Board of Control in England, sent a dispatch, that is an official report, to Governor General Lord Dalhousie in India. At that time, Sir Charles Wood, a British government official in his role as president of the Board of Control, was responsible for overseeing the affairs of the East India Company in India from his London office. In his dispatch to Lord Dalhousie, Wood gave his recommendations on the system of education to be followed in India. This dispatch was to become the blueprint for education in India for a long time to come. The main points of the dispatch were as follows. An education department was to be set up in every province. Provision was to be made for a systematic method of education from the primary to the university level. In Bombay, Madras and Calcutta, universities were to be opened along the lines of the universities in London. Every district was to have at least one government school. Grants in aid were to be given to private schools affiliated to the government. Indians were to be taught their mother tongue as well. The government should always support education for women. The dispatch asked the East India Company to take up the responsibility of education of the masses. As per the direction given by the dispatch, a department of education was instituted in all the provinces of India. In 1857, universities were set up at Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. Many schools were now opened in India to impart the Western system of education in English. Even Christian missionaries teaching through Indian languages were made to switch over to English. Wealthy Indians began attending such schools. Eventually, many of these educated Indians became responsible for spreading the idea of freedom and liberty to the common people. What were the purposes of the Western education in British India? The most important reason for the introduction of the Western education was to make the cost of administration of the country economical. The Western educated Indians could take up subordinate posts in administration at low cost. The British government believed that by being introduced to the English system of education, the Indians would be able to relate themselves more to the British ways of life and conduct. Western education was expected to inculcate a sense of respect among the Indian people for the British rule, as it glorified the British conquest of India and their administration. For the British, the use of Western education was a way through which it could further strengthen its political authority in India. How did the modern education system favor the British? The Western education system created a class of people in India who were English educated, and therefore they were capable of carrying out the East India Company's administrative functions as civil servants. The Western education system also changed the taste of some individuals to such an extent that they favored everything British and looked upon Indian goods and Indian culture with disdain. How was the modern education system favorable to the Indians? The Western education roused the sentiments of the Indians and made them aware of the ill effects of a foreign rule. They were able to read the works of modern European thinkers and were exposed to democratic values and principles. The educated Indians became aware of nationalist movements in different parts of the world, and this created in them the desire to free India from the British and create a new nation that was strong and independent. Now let us examine the demerits of the modern education system in British India. The British invested money in Indian education only for the returns they would get in the form of an educated class of clerks. It was also less expensive than bringing in people from Britain. The modern education system in British ruled India had a lot of loopholes and the following are some of them. Though the middle schools which taught in English were opened, primary education was neglected. So was education for the poor. The Indian language schools lost both students and support. They were forced to close down. No attention was paid to the education of women. Scientific and technical education was not taken care of. The major drawback of the modern system of education in British India was that the British neglected the education of the masses. As a result, there was a wide gap between the educated Indians and the uneducated ones. The educated Indians were the ones who belonged to the upper and affluent sections of the society. They were the people who largely had the monopoly over higher education. The education system of the British did not reach the grassroots level. Eventually, eminent men of Bengal like Satish Chandra Mukherjee, Aurobindo Ghosh and Rabindranath Tagore met in 1905 and decided to form a National Council of Education. The mission of this council was to start a system of education on a national scale. Funds were collected and many schools and colleges were opened. Slowly and gradually, over the course of the next 100 years, Indian universities began to produce outstanding scientists, research people, scholars and literary figures, and tremendous progress has been achieved in the field of wholesome education. Well, that's all for today. Meet you again very soon. Bye.